not him, well, him being part of a cabinet, being part of a government. It's not for the citizenry to be courageous, it's for the government to be courageous. It's for the government to do courageous things regardless of the political consequences. I think part of the fear is that the government, I'm saying here the government only because at this particular time, a particular government is in place. I would say something, I probably wouldn't say anything different if another government was in place. So I'm not carrying any water for any particular person at this time. But we're just being practical and living with and working with what we see. Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying that it is imperative that the courage comes from the government having the political will to do the very difficult things, to put 1,000 more policemen on the road, to put 1,000 more cars on the street, to make police more visible, to ensure that corruption in the police service and in the government is brought to a minimum. These are things, these are things that the government should have the political will to be able to do, and that will show that the government taking some responsibility and accountability for the situation that we are in. And it's not about asking the citizenry who does not have the protection of the government to make these courageous stands. Now, even as I listen to myself, I don't want for 1 second to think that I am taking away any responsibility from each of us as individuals to be aware, to report things we see. I am not. But at the same token, I want to be very clear about where I feel both the responsibility and most of all the accountability lies. And it lies with the government in power. The courage is demanded of the government in power. The draconian, if necessary, steps that need to be taken with the government in power, not with the citizenry. Because what the citizens would do, if that was the case, and they're trying to do, is to arm themselves to protect themselves, which isn't the answer.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to the nature of crime in Trinidad and Tobago, what we're seeing taking place, of course, society on a daily basis is getting more and more unhinged. And it is traumatic for many, law-abiding citizens who have to face this on a daily basis. Even the investment in their personal security and the security for their home has become so much of a burden. Do you think that given what we've seen, that the sincerity is there on the part of those whom you argue should take primary responsibility? They simply just don't have a clue.
I think, one, they don't have a clue, but two, I think it's a sign of helplessness. It's a sign of really feeling that this is just beyond us. I think they feel like there's no other options, that there are no other things, there are no other creative things they can do to address the crime in the country. And the easy thing to do is to shift the blame, which is a sign of the government's own helplessness in dealing with the situation.
Mr. John, let me just interrupt you there. You said it's a sign of helplessness.
Certainly.
Are you of the opinion that the people are reflective of the government that is in power at that day? Or is it in reverse? The government is reflective of the people and exactly what the people are thinking or feeling? Because to a certain extent, one would argue that the citizens feel a lot more helpless than the government.
Certainly. The citizenry feel helpless in the sense that they feel that they're no longer safe, that they no longer live in a society where they can move around freely, that they can no longer be in or out or have a social life the way they would like to in that context. But again, so in that context, the citizenry feels feels helpless. But the helplessness comes to because they see a government that's unable, and I dare say probably now even unwilling, to do the things that are necessary to change.
Why would you say unwilling? Why would you argue unwilling?
Because to do the things that are necessary, and in this particular society, at this particular time, in this particular moment, draconian things may need to be done. Not even the draconian things. Why don't we, where are the guns coming from? I am sure a National Security Council know where the guns are coming from, who are bringing the guns into the country. When are we going to have the courage to really go after whoever these individuals may be or groups of people may be? That's an issue. So I would say to some degree, there's an unwillingness to go there because that's a hornet's nest. And that's something that the government, or probably any government, is really afraid to touch because that's the Mr. Big. And I'm using that in a very broad sense.
Okay, so I'm not going to say whether or not it's reasonable or not to suggest that the governments are aware of criminal elements, although one might argue they may be aware, they just don't necessarily have the evidence, and that has been an issue with the TTPS in Trinidad. Even argued on all sides. However, that being said, you keep using this term throughout the interview, draconian measures. Could you please expand on what you mean by draconian measures? You see, it's interesting coming from the words of a psychologist.
Right, yeah. So, what I'm not saying, and let's be clear, I'm not saying to do things that are illegal, that are unconscionable. But I think there are tools within the law that can be used, even if it means that people have to go out and start seeing more police on the street and the place looks like a police state. It doesn't mean that these police officers are going around, going into people's houses without warrants. It doesn't mean anything like that. But even if there's a greater visibility of police service, if they see in fact that people are being arrested, if they see a government that is willing, notwithstanding the separation of church and state or the pillars, to call the judiciary accountable for the slow pace of justice, or sometimes not just the slow pace of justice, but the fact that I could be out on bail today for a crime and then yet I kill somebody tomorrow. I mean, those kinds of things where government need to really step forward and take some serious action, make a serious presence. People feel unsafe because they don't feel a presence of a government or a police service that seem to be making them feel safe. I remember some years ago, I was kidnapped. And one of the things I remember coming out of it, that the first thing I had to do to begin to feel safe again was to make my immediate surroundings safe, to make my home safe, to make my environment safe. Well, the same thing those in authority need to do. For the people in the country to feel safe, they must take action to make the people in the society feel safe. And the people in the society feel safe by seeing visible signs, not talk, not rhetoric, but see visible signs that action is being taken. And I'm using draconian, maybe I should say very severe action, very dynamic action. I'm using draconian action to mean that something impactful is being done to address the crime situation.
Mr. John, in your opinion, what responsibility do you think citizens of Trinidad and Tobago have in dealing with this situation?
if I was a father, my responsibility would be to ensure that I show good values at home, that I tell my children about right and wrong, that I'm very aware of what they're doing. I try to be a good model. I try to be a good example. And so those are the kinds of things we as parents or as individuals, we need to do in our life sphere, the people we influence. So we have that personal responsibility to those in our charge or those in our environment. So I'm not in any way taking away the fact that each of us, and certainly each of us as adults or leaders or parents or whatever, we have responsibility to ensure that we do the best kind of parenting as possible. So, and that's a given. But sometimes, even with the best parenting, you have children who end up in criminal activity. So it's still, and I know you think I might be beating this. So at the end of the day, even though we all have our individual responsibility, it's the government's collective responsibility.
No, Mr. John, I hear you.
The government's collective.
I hear you. But I hear you. But the counter-argument I would make is, okay, let's say the government do implement such stronger measures where you see or feel a stronger police presence, where you hear of people being charged and remanded until their date in court is heard. Let's say we see all these things happening and definitely there seems to be some effort on the part of the authorities. That doesn't necessarily mean, as you are making the argument, that crime within the household, crime within the community is going to come to an end.
Well, you remember, part of seeing this happens also too is the criminal is getting a message also that, hey, listen, all these things that we're doing in the open, without a care for anything, without a care for any appropriate response from the police service because our detection rate is so low. If people see, and I'm talking about the criminal element, if they see that, hey, people are being caught, people are going to jail, people are doing time, the judiciary is moving faster. I do know that if I'm arrested, that I will be charged, that I'm going to go through a system that's going to put me away for whatever time that's within the law, but we have a system that's moving. Well, those things begin to make people feel safe, and it also sends a message to the criminal element that it's not business as usual, and we will not just do this and get away with everything, because we know that we're dealing with a government with a leadership, with a leadership that does not seem to have the political will to do the things to really come after us.
Well, I'll go you one further in response to what you're saying, the political will. The Minister of National Security is urging people not to make the murders that took place last weekend a political issue.
Yeah, and well, I'm speaking as an individual. I'm speaking as a psychologist. I'm not speaking as with a political hat on. I'm talking about this government only because this is the government that's in power at the moment. And so I'm speaking to that. And to some degree, life is about politics. Being in government is about politics. Being in the cabinet is about politics. Being accountable to the country is about politics. So it is about politics. It's not about politics in the narrow sense that it's about the PNM government or the UNC government or the National Transformation Alliance or all the other conglomerations they have. It's not about politics in that narrow sense. What politics is about, it's about trying to do the best for your country, trying to do the best for your people. It's trying to do the best to keep your society safe. And if you're not doing that, then you're failing in your politics. And the politicians are the ones, unfortunately, who are at this time or at any time who are accountable for making the difference in the society. There have been countries where there have been incredible amount of crime, and crime has come down. Crime has come down. In Jamaica, crime is going down. In Trinidad and Tobago, crime is going up. Crime is on the rise. We must do better. We must.
Mr. John, my final question to you this morning is: at what point do you see that government or politicians or a cabinet, however we like to phrase it, how do we change the phrasing from "they are failing when it comes to crime" to "they have failed when it comes to crime"?
All we have to do is to look at the evidence around us. We just have to look at the evidence around us, and are we any better off today than we were 4 years ago? Is crime any less today than it was 3 years ago? Okay. And the answer to those questions are evident. Okay. So that when you look at those things, the answer must be that we are not succeeding as it relates to creating a safer country, a safer environment. And in that case, the failure must be put 100% under government in power, notwithstanding the fact that each of us have an individual responsibility.
Well, Mr. John, thank you very much for joining us on the program this morning. Thank you for sharing your perspective, your opinions with us on this issue. And I appreciate the time to share your message with the viewing audience. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Keelan. Have a good day.
Have a good day. All the very best. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break here on AM Prime. We'll return shortly. We've got to pay some bills. We'll be right back.
Imagine a world where arguments don't exist. CICR is a full-service conflict resolution company that offers mediation training and workshops for all. In 2024, our 40-hour workshops are back, giving you all the tools you need to become a certified mediator in Trinidad and Tobago. Want to know more? Call us at 768-6778 or visit our website. Let's work together to make the world a better place.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Folks, we're back and better than ever.
Your show have always appeared to be a show that is focused on going to the cause or looking to the cause.
We hardly ever talk about the white collar crime though. We always talk about the ones that involve more as physical violence against individuals.
The citizens will only measure transmission when water starts to flow through their taps.
The Constitution doesn't talk about local election.
Contract mafia that's responsible for looting the country and they own and operate these politicians.
So if you are running a country and you can't say nothing as a prime minister, please take up your bag and go.
It is not comparative to the murder figures, but it is in fact very high.
I believe he's protecting certain individuals.
are watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Just give an overview of what exactly is that split arrangement.
Now you don't need to register nothing. You don't need. We can do that another time. But then it becomes a hit, and then everybody starts to want to claim.
The laws that predate many of the independent countries' constitutions are going to be those colonial laws.
We know there are an infinite amount of circumstances that would lead to a murder.
I have a great idea and, I have a great concept, but until it's actually expressed, it does not become intellectual property.
Accomplishments or targets of a forensic accountant is to quantify what may have been lost.
We believe we defend criminals and we manipulated the law and we exploited the system.
A responsible journalist will reach out to the person who they have the information on for a comment.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for, it's called loss and damage. And we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region. Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
Fellow citizens, our Constitution is a supreme law that safeguards our rights and provides rules for the functioning of government and those in authority. Serving the needs of the public and improving the quality of life of citizens begins with the country's Constitution. The Constitution should guarantee accountability in governance and public service efficiency to us, the people. The National Advisory Committee on Constitutional Reform wants to hear from you on possible improvements to our Constitution. Read the Constitution on the website and submit recommendations by April 15th to constitutionalreform2024.gov.tt.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug.
You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe.
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God, so we cannot have a stalemate.
We'll focus on the woman who's being the victim, right, or the man who's been the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI, worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
Welcome back to AM Prime, ladies and gentlemen. On Saturday, the 6th of April at 6:30 p.m. At the All Saints Anglican Church in Porto, Spain, where we are from, celebrating the Caribbean spirit as part of Chandelier Productions. Well, we actually look forward to that in the sense that this morning we give you a little piece of what is to come by the fact that in studio we have right next to me Miss Tiana Chandler. She's the founder of Chandelier Productions and producer of Where We Are From. And the gentleman next to me, Mr. Michael Hudlin. I got that correct, did I?
Yes,
I got that correct. Good, good. Musical conductor from Where We Are From and composer of, and this is where you're going to have to help me.
Yes. Te Deum.
Te Deum. Okay, so thank you very much. Yes, I did my research before the interview. It's just pronunciations, you know. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, thank you for having us.
Well, it certainly is my pleasure. And I'm reading about the production Where We Are From, and the first thing that pops up is a celebration of the Caribbean spirit. So, Tiana, so I'm going to start with you. Why do we even refer to this as a celebration of the Caribbean spirit?
Well, first of all, I just want to make one small correction. The title is actually Where We From, because it is, of course, we speak a little broken, or our own Trinidadian dialect.
I stand corrected.
So we really wanted to incorporate that as well to really showcase this is us on stage, represented through the music and the people that we are showcasing in this concert. We are doing classical music, which is why it was so important for us to incorporate the Caribbean Trinbagonian element into it, because a lot of people don't typically associate classical music with the Caribbean, with Trinidad and Tobago. But this piece, the one that you would have mentioned, the Te Deum, is actually composed by Michael for this show, and it incorporates not just that traditional classical music feel, but it is really bringing in the Caribbean, Trinbagonian, folk, calypso rhythms into the classical music. So you kind of get in the best of both worlds.
So this is where the hard part comes in, Michael, because as composer of the song, Tiana said it herself, we don't necessarily associate classical music with Trinbago or Caribbean culture. How do you find that fusion, that perfect mix when writing this song?
Gratefully, I'm not the first to do it. So right here in Trinidad and Tobago, we have people like Desmond Waith and Dr. Roger Henry, who are composers in their own right, who takes elements from what we have here in Trinidad and Tobago and bring out whatever new pieces they have. But I believe I'm taking it a step further than they did. So I am very much enamored with old classical music. So I'm taking things from that. So it's melodies coming all over the place. It is rhythms that are very akin, very much to Trinidadian and very Caribbean, as opposed to it just being a more classical piece, a more classical sounding piece with elements interspersed. So it feels from beginning to end very Trinidadian, very Caribbean. That was the goal.
But when you have so much in front of you in terms of resources, in terms of talent, in terms of pieces that have existed, how do you find that single dose of inspiration? Can't that be confusing to you as a composer?
It can, but I always say we are inspired and we are a product of everything that we are exposed to. We are an amalgamation of everything that we've been exposed to. So all of those things came together to be this new piece. So it's not as though that I went and said, okay, I'm taking this, and I'm putting it together. But since I've heard them before, I said, okay, this works. And I know where to start and how do I make it my own as I continue.
Mm-hmm. Tiana, this product that you are offering to an audience, and I must say, I'm intrigued even by the aspect of, I love music, I love musicals, but learning about the inclusion of Caribbean folk melodies, classical music, why have you chosen to actually focus on this? Why is this something that you want to present to people?
I have a history of being a performer as well. And when I would have started singing in my youth, I would have been in a lot of choirs, and that would have been my first foray into classical music and choral music. And even as a teenager growing up and performing these pieces and learning this music, it was amazing to me to just see something that is not really at the forefront of music in Trinidad and Tobago be presented to me, and found that I actually really enjoyed it. And so later on in life, I thought it was important to find a way to share the beauty of classical music with audiences. And the classical music market in Trinidad is very niche. It is not as wide and far-reaching as other genres of music in Trinidad and Tobago. But I do think it is beautiful and important to share all types of music with people. And we've done quite a few classical music concerts in the past. We have done some masterworks from the Handel and so on, that might, with names that might be more familiar to general music-going, music-loving patrons. But we also try to focus a lot on doing new music as well, and Michael has done quite a few compositions for these concerts in the past, one of which is making a comeback at this concert as well. It would have been the first composition that we would have premiered way back in 2016 with Michael is A Gloria, and he's bringing an excerpt of that to this show as well, because as I said, we are showcasing a lot of the talent of Trinidad and Tobago, not just in the new composition that fuses those elements, but also a lot, if not all of the music in this show is actually written, composed or arranged by local Trinidadian, Caribbean
Is
persons.
that precisely why the title is Where We From? Because
Yes.
that is a grasp as well, the celebration of Caribbean culture, Caribbean spirit. Where we from, though, there's a certain appeal that's associated with that. It's like, I want to know about who are we as a people, where we come from, where our roots lie.
Yes,
So I need to go watch this.
Please.
Yes, I do think it is important, and as I mentioned earlier, people don't typically associate classical music with Trinbagonian culture, but this is definitely, it is a part of us. It is composed by us, it's being performed by us in our spaces for our people. I feel like the work that Michael would have done for this concert specifically definitely accurately represents the title of this show, and I am very excited for people to hear it.
No pressure at all, Michael. But Michael, Te Deum, what does that translate to? What does it mean?
Te Deum, well, it's Te Deum Laudamus.
Thank you.
So it's Te Deum Laudamus, we praise thee, O God. So that text is a lot of words. It's a long set of text. And it turned into just about 20-25 minutes of music. It was an experience.
This one piece?
That one piece.
Really?
It's broken into different sections, but it is just about 25 minutes of music. And I always wanted to set the text. In 2022, we did a performance of another composer's Te Deum, which we all loved. And I always told myself I should set this text to music as well. So the original program was going to be Mozart, and then it didn't sit well with me. It felt wrong. And I always trust my intuition. So I said, I think it's time to write something. So I sat at where I work at All Saints as well, and I sat at the organ, and I said, okay, how do I start this? And the opening lines started coming to me, and I said, okay, this makes sense. And then eventually I took out my tablet and I started just scripting all the music as I was playing on the organ. And eventually that turned into the Te Deum that we have today.
I think Tiana's laughing because I think we both think, how much brain power this thing?
Oh boy.
I was actually having this conversation yesterday where someone was asking me, how do I compose? And I said, it's one out of two ways. One, it comes to me. There's a song in the show that I premiered a few years ago called Lamentation. That's a song that came to me while I was driving. I was reflecting on what happened to George Floyd. And the text started coming, and then the melody came. I recorded the entire song driving in my car. I just put my phone there and I just sang the entire song. So those are rare bursts of inspiration.
You know, the thing is, I'm curious to know the burst of inspiration that you feel when you're composing, not what you're thinking, more so what you're feeling, when you're bringing out the rhythms, when you're bringing out exactly what you want this piece to make others feel. How are you planning to bring this out when we are privy to this on Saturday, 6th of April? Do you have sopranos supporting you? Do you have others supporting you? Because it's a choral arrangement, right?
It's a choral piece, it's a choral work. So we have a wonderful cast. We have singers that I've grown up singing with, singers that I've known personally, and people that I've met along the way. So we get a talented cast of singers. We're using the Lydian Steel to accompany us. We have Jessel Murray on the piano as well. And also my cousin is playing. My cousin is playing the drums. So I'm using every aspect of my network to get this production out. And yesterday at rehearsal, the cast might say that I'm picky and finicky, but I sat with them and I said, no, we're doing it like this.
Tiana's reactions.
I said, no, we need to get it like this. This is the character that we need to bring out. This is the emotion that we need to get. And to me, that is what music, the crux of music is. How does it make you feel?
Yeah.
It's always about the emotion. That's what the Baroque composers were thinking about. That is what the Renaissance composers were thinking about. How does it make my audience feel?
Well, Tiana, this is, Chandelier Productions have provided a platform really for local talent and creatives. But I understand this is your 11th production since being established in 2015. It's less than 10 years and you've put forward 11 productions already. So tell us a bit more of all that has happened already and what you plan to come.
When people summarize it like that, it feels like so much. But I started this when I was still just a performer, just finding my way around the arts as I was transitioning into adulthood. And as you said, it really was always meant to be a space and a place that people can come and showcase their talents and really just share so much of the beauty of the music and the arts that we have as a people in Trinidad and Tobago. There's so much talent that I have witnessed as a performer and now as a producer, even in other aspects of the arts that I work. It is amazing how many talented people we have in so many different spheres that you might not even consider. And I started this to continue creating that platform, and every time we do a show, it is a stressful process. There are different challenges that we have to face, and by the time the show comes off and you see that final product, it's like, this is why I'm doing it. To see the performances come to life, the talent of the casts that we work with, even the audience responses, and as Michael said, it's really about how you feel. And sometimes for me, I don't always perform in the shows. Sometimes I just sit on the side and look on.
Are you performing next weekend?
I am not performing with the choir, but I am actually premiering another one of Michael's compositions that is an excerpt from a musical theater, an original, again, a Trinidadian composed and written musical theater production that hopefully we will bring to the stages.
At some point.
down the road, not this year, but it is something that is in the works. So I will be premiering a song from that production in this show.
So we're getting a sneak peek.
You are getting a little sneak peek.
Oh,
and hopefully that will encourage people to look out for it when it does hit the stage. But I really think it's important for us to keep doing this type of work. There are so many genres of music, and I think that all of them really do show who we are as a people in different ways. And of course, when it is composed, performed by Trinbagonian people, you start to see different layers of the music, different layers of the emotions, different layers of the people as well. So I think the program that Michael would have really built definitely showcases where we're from. This is Trinidad and Tobago, and this is who we are.
Michael, in terms of live music, when you go to a cinema, you watch a movie, there's music, infamously Walt Disney said if you don't add music to something, there's no life to it. But you know, you get the point. You sit down there and you watch a film, there may be music within the film, and people, you know, are happy, go along with it. It brings out some level of spirit. Yes. But recorded music as compared to live music that people witness, as a composer, what do you think the difference is in bringing that spirit out in people?
I don't know where I've heard it, but they say there's nothing like live theater. There is nothing like a live performance. And even we as Trinidadians, we're hearing soca on the radio, calypso, all of those things. So, but why do we go to a concert? Why do we go to something like a Kes concert? Or why do we go to the calypso tents? Because there is something different about seeing people actually creating the work, because you connect with them. And also, I can get into the science of acoustics and all of those things that makes a big difference as well. But being in the space, hearing the sound fill the space naturally, there is something that overwhelms you to a certain point. As Tiana was mentioning, her background, I remember when I first fell in love with classical music. I remember exactly when it was. It was 2010. Napa had just opened, and the music, I can't remember if it was the closing ceremony or if it was Music Festival highlights. I think it was the highlights as well. And St. Joseph's Convent and Presentation College performed Bruckner's Viga Yese. I'm thinking about it and I'm tearing up a little bit. And I remember sitting in the audience as a child watching that, completely enamored. I said, I want to do that. I want to be able to do that. You on stage.
I actually performed the piece that he was speaking about.
Yeah. So it's so important to have those experiences. I mean, I could have listened to a recording of Virga Yese and say, oh, that's nice. But watching the choir on stage, seeing everyone respond together, being in the audience, you share the emotion with the audience as well, because they are holding their breath. They are in such enjoyment. There's nothing like live theater. Nothing like it.
Nothing like
well,
live
exactly
music.
what you felt is what you want to bring out in the audience. And should anyone feel that level of interest and enthusiasm, and I'm probably seeing it very mildly as compared to how you've described it, Tiana has provided the platform for local talent, for young talent to grace the stage. I think you guys are doing an absolutely fantastic job, not only in what you all are giving to the public in terms of what is going to come out of them, what they're going to feel, but also the opportunities involved as well. And to also fuse Caribbean folklore music with classical music. I know you said it's not the first time, but by goodness, even heading down that road, I take my hat off. Tiana, before we leave, where can people get more information? And should they want to purchase tickets, and I encourage you to, where can they contact you to get tickets?
So first of all, we have all of the information, and the tickets are also available on the Chandelier Productions website. That is chandelierproductionstt.com. You can purchase tickets for the reasonable cost of $200 each online.
That's extremely reasonable.
I would say so. You can purchase them online from the website, and they are also available at the All Saints Church office, which is open from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Monday to Friday. You can also call us at 710-9436 or 295-7435, or check us out on social media. We are on Facebook and Instagram at Production Chandelier, and you will see a lot of information about the cast members, about the production, more about the work that Michael would have composed. And you can really just engage with us through those platforms as well and get all of the updates as they come in and as we prepare for April 6th.
Guys, I'm not jumping the gun here, but, you know, don't have us waiting too long for the next one.
No.
Not too long.
We'll keep that in mind.
Ladies and gentlemen, we take a break here on AM Prime. We'll be right back after these messages.
Here is the WESN News on the Hour. I am Sarah Ali. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Pipara mud volcano currently slowed down in activity. The SA president criticizes government's disregard for worker representation amidst WASA restructuring. Tourism Minister rejects opposition's attempt to divert attention from ICNTT matters, and internationally, Stephen Marley given the key to the city of Wilmington, Delaware. Now for the details. The Office of Disaster Preparedness and Management has reported a temporary slowdown in activity at the Pipara mud volcano following weekend monitoring. In a statement released on Sunday, the ODPM highlighted a noticeable decrease in both the noise level and the discharge of mud and gas from the volcano. The volcano's dome shows no significant new fissures or widening, as confirmed by observations from both monitoring equipment and discussions with residents in the area, the statement explained. Access to the vicinity remains restricted as the volcano continues to exhibit signs of activity. Leroy Batiste, president of the Public Services Association, has expressed the union's ongoing dispute with the government regarding what they perceive as a lack of consideration for worker representation. In an interview, Batiste highlighted the long-standing issue of the restructuring of Water and Sewerage Authority, which has been a topic of public discussion for some time. Batiste emphasized that there have been extensive discussions between the union and the authorities regarding this matter. He stressed that the primary concern of the union is to ensure that workers' interests are adequately represented, as the restructuring decision directly affects their lives and livelihoods. The trade union leader criticized what he described as a dismissive attitude of the authorities towards the union's concern. Culture and Arts Minister Randall Mitchell has firmly stated his refusal to be drawn into what he perceives as a ploy by opposition Senator Wade Mark to divert public attention away from internal issues within the United National Congress. In a news conference held at the UNC's headquarters in Chaguanas on Sunday, Mark raised questions regarding Mitchell's potential involvement with a company that owns a building in Port of Spain, currently being leased by Pan Trinbago for office space. In response to these queries, Mitchell dismissed Mark's assertions as an attempt to deflect focus from the ongoing challenges faced by the UNC. He reiterated that he has already publicly addressed his involvement as a 50% shareholder in Dare Street Limited, the entity that owns the property located at 55 Dundonald Street, Port of Spain. On Wednesday, Wilmington's Mayor Mike Pizzacchi honored Stephen with the key to the city in a ceremony at the One Love Park, attended by fans and some of the Marley family members. Wilmington is the first place in the U.S. where Bob Marley lived with his mother, Cedella Malcolm Booker, who immigrated from Jamaica to Delaware in 1962. Well, that's it to News on the Hour on WESN. I am Sarah Ali. Thank you for watching.
This is 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for, it's called loss and damage. And we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region.
Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada in spite of the obvious difference in size.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. So we're getting into a bit more of a serious topic now. We're speaking about the internal elections within the United National Congress, the National Executives, as they're known, NATEX. And the reason why we're focusing on that is because there are question marks surrounding the United National Congress's constitution, when NATEX elections are constitutionally due. But in recent times, we're also it's hard to gauge or fully understand what intentions are with respect to the political leadership. So I'm not going to jump and make any assumptions, but with respect to Rushton Parry, he has been very vocal, even holding a press conference last week, Friday, making a call for NATEX elections to be held when constitutionally due. Now, Rushton Parry has faced a lot of criticisms from his colleagues. Many of them who I'm surprised are even aware of the kind of vocabulary that they were using. I wonder if they really knew the meaning of some of the words that they were putting out there. And I say that because half of them I didn't even realize still exist within the party. But that is for a different conversation, because what also was brought up was a NACTA poll that was released last Friday. And you will have your arguments with respect to polls, whether or not you believe them. That being said, basically a summary to put it from this NACTA poll is that Kamla Persad-Bissessar should step aside before general elections are due in 2025 if the UNC are to have the best chance at winning the election. I'm joined this morning by geopolitical analyst Dr. Sheen Mohammed. He is with us virtually, and I think he's outside the Red House actually. Good morning, Dr. Mohammed. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Keaton. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Not too bad. I'm enjoying the little sunshine from the morning sunshine from outside of the Red House.
Hey, Dr. Mohammed, I wonder if you are able to make a better analysis of this situation happening now within the United National Congress than I am, and the general public are able to do so. The simple reason being is because it seems as though this word united, when associating it with the UNC, is far from being true.
To be quite honest, if anybody's looking in now and wasn't sure about what the UNC represented and what the UNC stood for, would quite frankly question the word united in terms of how it's in the description of the party, because as far as I can see it, it's now have disintegrated into nothing but a huge mess, worse than it was before, especially in recent times. With the call for internal elections.
Mm-hmm. Now, that's the thing. There's been a call for internal elections on the part of MP Rushton Parry. He's arguing that it should be called when it's constitutionally due in June. And there are a few MPs who are backing him. That being said, the majority of sitting MPs have come out in support of Kamla Persad-Bissessar. It seems as though there is an immediate defense of the opposition leader, as though Rushton Parry's calls for, the internal elections are him challenging the leadership.
Well, we have to understand how the Constitution of the United Nations Congress works in the context as to how it fits into the dynamic now. So the first thing we have to take into consideration is, yes, it is true that the United National Congress internal elections are due in June. However, the positions that are electable in June are only the positions from deputy political leader come down. The political leadership of the United National Congress, the term of the leadership of the United National Congress has not expired and will not expire until 2025. So the call for internal elections, the communication that should have been put forward for national executive elections within the United National Congress on the part of Mr. Perry should have been very clear that he's calling for, elections of the executive that will expire in June, and that the narrative should have been one where he would have explained that we are looking for the best persons that will support Mrs. Prasad-Visesa and her leadership in the run-up to the general election. Now you have to also take into consideration there's another dynamic to all of this, that where an election is imminent and it falls within the close proximity of a national executive election, the national executive can, by resolution, pass a motion to have the internal election suspended until after the general elections. That is then taken to the National Congress to be ratified, and then onwards to the National Assembly. Now, all of that can be done if an election is imminent, meaning that it is within a year to 6 months from an internal election. So there's also another aspect of it. Mrs. Prasad-Visesa, as political leader of the UNC, has the sole discretion to decide whether she would run a slate as well as, also run the political leadership position in the internal election that is due in June, and let the chips fall where they may. There's also another aspect of that, which has been spoken about by all challengers of Mrs. Prasad-Visesa over the years, is that the election is not free and fair, and it's not. So the issue here now, as it pertains to your question, that Mr. Perry has directly challenged the leadership of Mrs. Prasad-Visesa, that is one school of thought, but it could also be akin to bad political communication, where he did not indicate that this was not an attack on the political leadership, nor was it a challenge to her leadership, because the leadership has not expired its term.
Shane, I need to ask you more so with respect to the United National Congress. The issues respective of NATEX has to be sorted out internally. That is not the responsibility nor within the power or the remit of anyone or anything else. However, we're seeing again a very interesting thing taking place. We saw it when Vasan Bharat challenged for the leadership of the United National Congress, even Ford Khan. It seems as though there's a clamoring around Kamla Prasad-Visesa, and Mr. Parry has called for NATEX to be held when it's constitutionally due. He has expressed his opinion, saying that he believes the UNC is not on its best footing heading in to the general election in 2025. We've seen the defense of Kamla Prasad-Visesa, the attack of Rushton Parry. It's one mess, and the thing is, I am trying to grasp my head around it in the sense that even if the political leadership of the United National Congress is to change, would the internals of the United National Congress change?
Well, as far as I can see it, the culture of the party very much rests on the ideology and the beliefs and the strengths and weaknesses of the leadership of the party. And Mr. Pandey would have instilled a certain learning, a certain teaching, a certain ideology, a certain culture, a certain belief system within the party system, within the party structure. He would have given opportunity to persons from across the party structure, from within the party, at the constituency level, at the national executive level, at the youth arm and women's arms level, all the way up. And he was not one that hinged on more of loyalty to the political leader per se. He saw talent. When he saw talent and he saw potential, he grabbed at that potential and that talent, and he found a way to best make use of it in the party system and as best as possible in the national interest and at the national level. With Mrs. Prasad Bisesa, what you see is more of a party-centric leadership, party-centric ideology, and more towards who is more loyal to the leadership than to the party itself. It's as if it's like a maximum leadership kind of perspective, which speaks volumes because in the leadership theory traits that are associated with a leader who is more leader-centric and more towards maximum leadership and that kind of authoritarian populist leadership are those who have certain insecurities, and the leadership theories teach us all of that, right? So that then transcends into a new culture, and a culture where people pander to the leader for political opportunity, and they pander to the leader for political relevance, and therefore, without that pandering to the leadership, they understand very well that to deviate from such would lead to their political demise, and that has been seen across the board by the various persons, with the exception of Dr. Rudolph Munilal, who has now left the party or are on the fringes of the party. I don't expect that any different is going to happen now.
Shane, if I refer to the NACTA poll, it says, and I quote, middle of the road, floating, unaligned voters, as well as many who traditionally vote UNC, said it would like to see a revamped UNC with credible parliamentary candidates of repute and integrity. Now, this does not speak to the entire UNC membership, nor the entire voting population who would vote in favor of the United National Congress. By no means, this is just a poll. But even the majority of respondents, who, if I'm not mistaken, it's 540 in total, have, referred to there being a needing of the UNC having a clean slate heading into the elections in 2025. Do you think the United National Congress has any thoughts or suggestions at all about this? Do you think that they are aligning themselves with the same thing? That is why we're starting to see such internal conflict.
Well, let me start by saying this in response to this question, is that one of the things that must be understood is that this is not an attack on the political leadership of the United National Congress, and this is not a criticism, or people are not criticizing or finding fault, or it's not that it's not a scenario of woe is me in terms of the United National Congress and the leadership of Mrs. Prasad Bisesa. One has to understand that in the current system that we work and we live in, and as far as John Public can see, it is going to come down to a two-party race. Well, as of now, that's the first thing. And that very NACTA poll did say that if a third force did arise with credible and lucrative and reputable men and women that can move the country forward, then it poses a threat to both the PNM and the UNC and all other parties. So let's start with that. Why is it that focus is now on the United National Congress, and why is focus on the legitimacy and credibility and viability and reliance and resilience of the political leadership of Mrs. Prasad Bisesa? Well, quite frankly, in a two-party system, obviously where there's an incumbent party, which is the People's National Movement, and they've been in government for this, by 2025, for 10 years, and people are not happy with the results of governance, then obviously they're going to turn towards the leadership and the credibility and resilience of the United National Congress as the alternative government to see and question and to ask, well, what are your plans? What are your alternatives? Who are your persons? Who are your key selling persons to us that makes us want to gravitate towards you as the alternative government? And therefore, it is only natural in this instance where John Public, commentators, writers, political scientists will look towards the UNC and criticize where necessary in the interest that there's going to be some change from the norm towards and geared towards putting frameworks, policies, structures, personalities in place to show a good footing. Taken into consideration that in 2015, Mrs. Prasad Bisesa lost because her government had become unpopular. Taken into consideration in 2020, it was Mrs. Prasad Bisesa's election to win, which she lost an unpopular prime minister and government. And now, again in 2025, she's looking to repeat the battle. With the question will be asked with the same strategies, with the same persons, with the same policies, of which take any issue that arises in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago right now, which issue has been vehemently clear and a policy decided or a policy taken, one that makes sense, is full of research, has a structure, and resonates with the population from the United National Congress as an alternative to the People's National Movement? And the answer is none. So therefore, there will be a clamoring, and it is not an unjustified clamoring, it is not an unfair clamoring, it is not a woe is me clamoring, it is not, oh, I am being beaten upon, and I'm being picked upon, and I'm being scrutinized and criticized. You're not being scrutinized and criticized unfairly. You're being scrutinized and criticized with the intention that you will see the flaws, you will work towards changing those flaws so that you can give people hope that you are the alternative and convince them more so that you are the alternative to the People's National Movement. And if you cannot do that between now and 2025, then the status quo will remain. That's just as plain as it gets.
How does Karen Prasad Bisesa even make such an argument? I mean, you've just put forward your thoughts on the table with respect to the differences between the PNM and the UNT, and it seems as though there aren't much at this point, arguably. But that being said, how does Karen Prasad Bisesa navigate around this now and make that argument that I am the best person, I am the best leader? I've been in opposition, bear in mind, for 10 years, and Dr. Kirkney of the UNC has made the argument, we've made inroads in certain regional corporations. So when it came to the local government elections last year, our membership has grown. That's not necessarily translating to votes.
And that's a good point. It does not necessarily translate to votes, and not because you have to take into consideration the factors why you made inroads into the different corporations during the 2023 elections. It could very well be that the people, let's make it a fact. People voted against the PNM, in certain constituencies and certain regional corporations, especially like Grandi and San Fernando. They voted against the members of parliament. They voted against ministers. For example, when the PNM sent Rohan Sinaran into Sandy Grandi, the people of Grandi got very angry because for someone who came from Sandy Grandi, he's absolutely done nothing to invigorate confidence and excitement from the people, and therefore they need to send a very clear message. That is why one of two of their seats that would have been one marginal and one safe flipped in favor of the PNM. So you have to take into consideration the factors within that locality that triggers the people to vote in a particular direction or not vote at all. So it can't be said that you made inroads. You may have made inroads, but at the same time, it could also have been that you made inroads as a result of the People's National Movement's members and followers not voting on election day. And that is something that the UNC has not taken into consideration, because when you look at the numbers, it comes down to bare voting of traditional voters. Happens to be 20,000 more traditional voters than the PNMs. because the majority who chose not to vote, the numbers show that the people did not vote for the PNM, stayed home. So that's not a good argument to make whatsoever, neither is it credible, because that has been a norm over the years, where the traditional followers of the People's National Movement are not happy with a particular mode of a particular behavior, attitude, performance of the government or of a particular minister who's come from their locality. They will simply not vote, and they will let the chips fall where they may. We saw that happen. So it came down to base voting.
Dr. Mohammed, I wanted to ask you, in your opinion, heading into 2025, as things stand, do you think that the PNM or the UNC can have an impact on undecided voters? Do you think that they can appeal to people to come out and vote? Because I'm not discrediting other parties that exist as well, in the form of Hope and their alliance with the COP, as one example.
The answer to that, the long and short, very simple answer to that is no. And that they will have to settle to traditional voters. And let's just say it comes down to that the elections of 2023 showed that there were just over 300,000 people voting in that election. Where there's voter apathy, which exists now, and where people are not minded to vote, and if you ask persons outside if they're going to be minded to vote for either the PNM or the UNC, the answer is no, they would not vote. And where people don't have confidence in either parties, they just simply will go about the day as a normal day because nobody has sought to invigor them. And you ask about whether things can change. A day in politics is like a lifetime. What Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar may have to start understanding is that she will have, in order to really win an election, she may just have to listen to the very same voices within her party that is calling for a new dynamic and a level of change. And it does not necessarily mean that they're challenging her leadership. It just simply means that they're saying, listen, you need to be more open-minded to ideas, thoughts, strategies. When you have people like Ms. Anita Haynes coming out and making a statement, Anita Haynes worked in the office of the Prime Minister with Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar. In fact, she was handpicked by Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar to join the party and to enter into politics in the way that Anita has. And when you see that she has made a statement, which is one of the more educated statements, because Anita she knows political science, simply listening to new strategies, simply listening, every single political institution and political party, especially when it comes around to election times, there is going to be your team that is full of strategy, your strategic team. There's going to be your core team that is going to be on the ground putting forward your campaign and all of that. And then there's going to be your intelligence gathering team, your team that is building policies, putting ideas into policy documents that you can use on a campaign trail to give a guidance and direction as to where you're going if you were to go into government. Again, it is very difficult to train someone who is seasoned in their way any new tricks and any new ideas and any new thoughts. And where Mrs. and it has been proven. It's been proven in 2020. And 2020 is always a good case study for anybody who's looking to analyze the behaviors and the behaviors of both leaders and how is it that an unpopular prime minister and an unpopular government won an election in 2020.
Is it because the opposition leader is seen as more unpopular?
No, it was simply because the opposition leader didn't listen to those that were putting together the strategy. The party was not united. People were behaving and operating like silos in key marginal seats. That the flow of resources was too centralized and it wasn't getting accurately dispersed and dispensed as it was supposed to. So there are many things that create, and it all comes down to the people who's in charge. The main man who's in charge must be able to give direction and give it with authority to know that I don't have to worry about having to bend to anybody's demands or bend to anybody's threats or any of those. You see, you asked me this morning about what does the United and United National Congress now stand for, and that's the problem. The collapse of the real United National Congress took place while the United National Congress formed the People's Partnership Government and started crumbling by 2013. And unfortunately, that crumbling of the United National Congress from 2013 onwards, with its incapability of recovery in time for 2015, and then still not recovering and not even understanding how important or even being able to move towards a victory line in 2020, says that there's a web that has been weaved that is so deep and so complicated that it seems that even 2010 to 2025, which is 15 years after, the UNC is still yet to find a way to come out of it. Because there are those within the party as well who believe that they are entitled, and it is because of some arrangement / alignment / loyalty or pseudo-loyalty to the leadership. And everybody believes that they are entitled because they hold some kind of water that they can throw in the political leader's face. And she believes, and somehow also she's afraid that it may be true. Sometimes you need to throw caution to the wind, put your foot down, say, I'm the boss, this is what it is. If I decide to call into the election and I want these persons within my party to come in to form the national executive so we can have a best footing to make me prime minister, then she would be listening more and not being held ransom, as has been purported by those within the UNC. That's not my words. And people who are loyal to the UNC and members of the UNC need to understand that when people are focusing on the UNC, especially in this critical point in time, that it is not for the UNC to take it and take umbrage to it and to be offended by it, but it's natural for persons who are looking for an alternative to the incumbent, which is the present government, to start asking the hard questions, which sometimes may be very difficult to swallow or digest because the answers are not forthcoming and the solutions are not within the reach to meet the minds of the swing voters.
Dr. Mohammed, we're going to have to end it there. I want to thank you very much for joining me on the program this morning. And in response to all that you've said, let's see how things unfold.
We will look forward to it.
Certainly. Well, thank you very much for your time this morning, Dr. Mohammed. All the best.
You too.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's it for AM Prime this morning. Thank you so much to all my guests for their time and for joining me on the program and for sharing their thoughts and opinions with us. Ladies and gentlemen, wishing you a safe day ahead, a productive one, and well, we'll see you again very soon. I'm Keeson Shaw. Bye-bye.
WESN.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
Folks, we're back and better than ever.
Your show have always appeared to be a show that is focused on going to the cause or looking to the cause.
We hardly ever talk about the white-collar crime, though. We always talk about the ones that involve more as physical violence against individuals.
The citizens will only measure transmission when water starts to flow through their taps.
The Constitution doesn't talk about local election.
Contract mafia that's responsible for looting the country and they own and operate these politicians.
So if you are running a country and you can't say nothing as a prime minister, please take up your bag and go.
It is not comparative to the murder figures, but it is in fact very high.
I believe he's protecting certain individuals.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe.
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God, so we cannot have a stalemate.
We'll focus on the woman who's being the victim, or the man who's being the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI, worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm nothing to do with that.
I find that was distasteful. The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement. If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of the
not no.
Let's go to the last part.
Young at heart, purpose-driven, patriot even. When you like to party, but are still passionate about discussing important issues, the only place where your needs will be met is WESN Content Capital.
You
You are watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Just give an overview of what exactly is that split arrangement.
Now you don't need to register nothing. You don't need. We can do that another time. But then it becomes a hit, and then everybody starts to want to claim.
The laws that predate many of the independent countries' constitutions are going to be those colonial laws.
We know there are an infinite amount of circumstances that would lead to a murder.
I have a great idea and I have a great concept, but until it's actually expressed, it does not become intellectual property.
Accomplishments or targets of a forensic accountant is to quantify what may have been lost.
We believe in different criminals and we manipulated the law and we exploited the system.
A responsible journalist will reach out to the person who they have the information on for a comment.
Consistent U.S. position in the Security Council since the beginning of the war. This constitutes a clear departure from the consistent U.S. position in the Security Council since the beginning of the war.
Stated and in fact restated. Number one, it's a non-binding resolution, so there's no impact at all. A couple of points that need to be stated and in fact restated. Number one, it's a non-binding resolution, so there's no impact at all. Number two, as I said in my opening statement, it does not represent to continue to go after Hamas.
You are watching France 24. Stay with us.
Number two, as I said in my opening statement, it does not represent a change at all.
You are watching France 24. Stay with us.
You don't see it, but right now, all around me, there are lots and lots of holes. You don't see it. We call them cores, but right now, to check if all around me, having a mine here, there are lots and lots of holes.
It was the constant noise of machinery on the other side of the lake to where Jacques built his house that caught his interest one morning in 2016. It was the constant noise of machinery on the other side of the lake to where Jacques built his house that caught his interest one morning in 2016.
Generators, drills, the inhabitants of this tourist hotspot in southwestern Quebec discovered a mining exploration site. Generators, drills, the inhabitants of this tourist hotspot in southwestern Quebec discovered a mining exploration site in mineral in the manufacture of batteries for electric vehicles. A potential gold mine, or rather a graphite mine, an essential mineral in the manufacture of batteries for electric vehicles. Like most of his concerned neighbours, Jacques turns to the mayor of Duhamel.
80 years old?
Despite several meetings with the mining exploration company, the elected official turns to the mayor of many questions. Despite several meetings with the mining exploration company,
I'm in the same state of ignorance as my constituents.
Has many questions.
We sent a letter to the minister saying we wanted to be involved. Unfortunately, I'm in the same state of ignorance as my constituents. We sent a letter to the minister saying we wanted to be involved, is that we haven't even heard back from the mining industry to do a social responsibility analysis. My understanding of the process is that the government wants to ask the mining industry to do a social responsibility analysis. I'd say I've been abandoned by our government and benefit the mining industry.
In Canada, buying a claim, a mineral exploration title, is easy. All you need is an internet connection, a credit card, and around €50 a mineral exploration title on public land. All you need is an internet connection, a credit card, and around €50 to buy the right to dig on public land.
Et la décarbonisation, face aux défis climatiques, il est plus jamais essentiel pour le Québec de poursuivre sa transition énergétique. Cobalt, cuivre ou encore nickel. Et la décarbonisation passe entre autres par les véhicules critiques et stratégiques. Pas de panneaux solaires ni d'éoliennes. Cobalt, cuivre ou encore nickel. Sans eux, pas de véhicules électriques, pas d'avions, pas de panneaux solaires ni
critical
d'éoliennes.
and strategic minerals from its soil. Electric Minerals wants to extract large quantities of so-called critical and strategic minerals from its soil to over 10% of the territory. According to data from the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, has exploded to over 10% of the province's territory. According to data from the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry. This region in western Quebec is all too familiar with the cohabitation of mines and people. This region in western Quebec is all too familiar with the cohabitation of mines and people.
In an urban environment in Canada. The Eiffel Tower could fit in this hole here. This is a glimpse of what's in store for southern Quebec. In an urban environment if we don't take action to better regulate the mining industry. Fit in this hole here.
According to this lawyer from the region, the current gold rush calls for a civic and legislative awakening to protect both people. According to this lawyer from the region, the current gold rush calls for a civic and legislative awakening to protect both people and the environment.
We can see that this has reached every region of the province. Mining claims on bodies of water, as in the north and rivers. It's now practically the industry norm to make open every region of the province, which wasn't always the case in Quebec. As in the north, historically, practically the industry norm to make open pits this way, which wasn't always the case in the past. Tenfold. Historically, that is stored there forever on the land will also threaten the environmental impact is tenfold. Waste that is stored there forever on the land will also threaten bodies of
responsible for the final decision on whether or not to authorize the opening of a mine on his territory of Quebec assures us that nothing will be done without the final decision on whether or not to authorize the opening of a mine on his territory. Assures us that current law remains largely favorable to the mining industry. But this holdover in sustainable mining practices created at the time law remains largely favorable to the mining industry.
One day, a jurist in England decided that there was a divide between the ground surface and subsoil. In North America, California came up with this notion that there was a divide between the ground surface and subsoil. When North America had, apart from centuries-old Native American rule, no established colonial governance. This was a time when North America had, apart from centuries-old Native American rule, no established colonial governance. To do with the territory for our children and then our grandchildren. There are more people who want to be consulted
the onslaught of mining exploration in the digital age, some Quebecers are now buying the exploration titles around the onslaught of mining exploration in the digital age. Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry for its titles around promising a new bill to regulate the mining sector. The Quebec Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, for its part, is promising a new bill to regulate the mining sector as early as this year.
joue comme ça dans les matchs qui nous attendent, on peut aller au-delà de grosses déconvenues et on veut pas que ça nous arrive, donc c'est à nous de réagir comme ça dans les matchs qui nous attendent, comme ils ont dit avant, aller au-delà de grosses déconvenues et pas actuellement. Et on veut pas que ça nous arrive, donc c'est à nous de réagir dès demain, installer, comme ils ont dit avant, un certain doute dans l'équipe qui n'existe pas actuellement. Il y a eu des compétitions où les derniers matchs